When you die, do you know how your estate will be distributed? What about your children? Who will take care of them?
The answers to those and other questions may be very clear in your mind, but unless it's clearly stated in a will, there's a good chance that your wishes will not be granted after you've passed on. I'm sure you've heard stories of families being torn apart over an inheritance. Well, these stories of greed and betrayal really bring to light the importance of a will.
And our next guest has seen the best and the worst of humankind after death. Les Kotzer, he's a wills and estates lawyer. He's written it all down in a book called The Wills Lawyers. Their stories of money, inheritance, greed, family, and betrayal. Can't wait for the movie to come out. And he joins us from Toronto. Les, there is a chapter in your book which is called A Frank Discussion. So what's that about?
Well, a woman comes into my office because one of the things I do in my law practice, I do free reviews of wills. So people bring their wills in, I look at them to see if there's any problems. So she brought in a homemade will, and I noticed that it was typed, scratched out. I knew a lawyer didn't do this. So I was reading through it, and she said to me, "I'm sure it's perfectly fine, just look through it." I looked through it, and about 20 pages in, I finally found the beneficiary of the will. Normally, it's about 3 pages in, but this was about 20 pages in. And I put it down, and I said, "Oh, it looks fine to me, as long as you're telling me you have one son named Frank." She said, "What are you talking about? I have 3 children. They're all in my will. They're all equal in my will." I said, "No, ma'am. Your will now says here that I love my son Frank. He's the best son in the world. There's no son like him. Without him, I couldn't survive." And she said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Where's all my other 2 children?" I said, "They're not named here." She says, "Oh my God, what happened?" I said, "I don't know. Did you type this will?" She said, "No, Frank did." So
Frank left them all himself all the money.
Yeah, that's right. So we have a lot of humor in the book, a lot of shocking stories, some touching stories, but most importantly, you're going to learn a lot from what we see in our practice.
Okay, so the first thing, I guess, never have your child write your will would be rule number 1, right?
And number 2, have it reviewed. Make sure, that's why I do free will reviews.
Right.
I'm in Thornhill, Ontario. They come from all over Ontario for me to review their wills.
This woman must be thankful. And Frank probably doesn't like you too much.
That's right.
Okay, what about a power of attorney? First of all, what's a power of attorney? Why is it important to have one? And do you need to have a discussion with your children at this particular point to say, okay, like, who wants to be my power of attorney? Not you, Frank?
That's well, you should talk to your kids. Power of attorney, it takes effect while you're alive. There's 2 of them. One's financial, one's medical. The financial one basically stops the government from freezing your money in case you're deemed incompetent to manage your financial affairs. So if you want to keep the government out of your life, definitely do a financial power of attorney. And also a medical power of attorney to deal with who's going to make medical decisions. One of the things that my law firm has done, and we've developed kits for people who don't want to go to a lawyer. I don't know why people don't want to go to lawyers, but if you don't want to go to a lawyer, you can go to my website. The website is thewillslawyers.com. That's www.thewillslawyers.com.
Got it.
And we have kits so you can get online.
Okay, so as you mentioned, the book has got some shocking aspects to it. I'm going to ask you, what was the biggest shock you ever got when you reviewed a will, or maybe a request of a will?
Well, that's a hard one to say, but I'll tell you a shocking story that's in the book, and it's about a father who died twice. We had a brother contact us telling us how when Dad was very, very sick, they made a pact between the 3 kids that whenever they went to visit Dad, they would not talk about anything to do with money. It would only be about the kids, the grandkids, hockey trophies, hockey games. And when Dad was on his deathbed, very, very, very sick, they were all there together, the 3 kids, and all of a sudden, the daughter blurted out to Dad, "Dad, what about the house? You're leaving me the house, right, Dad? If you want, can I get a lawyer to come, Dad, and change your will right now?" And the son said to me, he said, "Les, it's if my dad died twice. Once when my sister had that selfish outburst, and the second when he was pronounced dead the next morning by the doctor."
Did she get the house, though?
No. Well, he didn't change the will.
Nice.
But she was trying to force him to. And, you know, there's also some very touching stuff, and we often are talking about living wills. You're asking me about power of attorney. But there's living wills that people talk about. That's part of a medical power. That's not being kept alive by tubes and machines if that's your wish. And often parents say, "Oh, you know, I'm not going to bother telling my kids," or they'll figure it out later. Well, there's a story in the book called "I Heard My Mother's Words," which I think is extremely important for people out there, because there's a woman who contacted us who told us that she had a call that her mother had fallen down the subway stairs in Toronto and was really, really bad. And she rushed to the hospital because her friend told her that they had to rush Mom down. And she goes to the hospital, and the doctor says, "Well, what did your mother want? There's really nothing much we can do. Did she want to be on machines? Did she want to live like this? What is it? And she said, I don't know, doctor. Did she leave any papers? No, she didn't leave me any papers. My sister's on a cruise. I can't call her. So the doctor said, please go home and look for the papers. And she said, I looked for the papers, Les. I couldn't find any. They came back to the hospital, and the doctor said, we need to know now. Do we keep her alive or do we let her go? And she said, doctor, any decision I make is not good, but let me think about it. So she said, Les, I went outside of the hospital grounds for a few moments, and my mind went back to when I was a kid and Mom walking me to school and all these memories of me and my mom. And then it went back to a time when I was washing dishes with Mom, and I was about 7 years old, and our beautiful dog, Katie, ran outside because my sister opened the door, and we heard a thump. A car had hit her, and we run outside. We see Katie howling on the ground in pain, and the man who hit her picked her up. The blood was on his pants, and we grabbed Katie, rushed her to the vet. And as we're rushing Katie to the vet, I kept saying to my mom, Mom, we have to save Katie. We have to save Katie. We love Katie. And we went to the vet, and the vet said, there's not much we can do. And I said, Mommy, we have to save Katie. Please, let's save Katie. And my mother said, honey, if you love something, you don't let it suffer. And it was only those words when I was 7 years old that came back to me that allowed me to go to the doctor and say, doctor, don't let my mother suffer, because I think that would be her wish. So we have to leave messages to our kids, documents, medical power, financial power, and a will. It's so important.
That's a sad story, Les. But one chapter of the book, I laughed out loud. I actually snorted. It's called I Love You All.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Well, that the one is where she had 3 kids, and she told me that one of her kids was too busy to visit her when she was 6, so she said she was too busy on the yacht club. Her second kid was too busy at the golf clubs. The third kid was too busy at his country club. But the fourth kid did everything for Mom. She said, I love all of my children. I'm leaving everything to my little baby because she was there for me. I love all of my children. I just don't like 3 of them.
So would they have, like when the will is being read, because I always, Liz and I were talking about this, I always got the feeling, it's a big lawyer's office with leather chairs and, oak tables and all that, and he goes, and now I'd like to read the will to so-and-so, to you nothing, to you nothing, to you nothing, and to you everything.
That's
that's
Hollywood.
Fighting each other, right?
That's Hollywood. It doesn't really happen that way.
But the spouses, the kids fight, though, over there, because it's never equal. It never, one always seems to get the short end of the stick.
Mark, if you notice the cover of the book is a hand grabbing the other hand. That's how we see an estate battle of hands grabbing other hands when the good hand may be the bottom one, it may be the top one, stopping a child from taking something that doesn't belong to them. But what we see are fights. We see some good things, but we decided we had to put into a book to educate people on what can go wrong and what can destroy their family. In the back of the book, there's even a section on the 26 points that we have found that are common in wills, common errors that we have found in our will reviews that people should read to realize if that's in my will, I better change my will.
Okay, so there is a story, though. We would imagine that when someone finds out they're getting a lot of money, they're always going to be happy about it. However, there was a cute little story you could tell us about the son who was getting money, but he was 70, and he just felt like, he wasn't pleased with his parents. You know the one I'm talking about?
I can't remember that one, but there is one where...
To do with his teeth.
Pardon? Oh, with the teeth.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was when he was, he told me, we handed him a check for a lot of money, and he basically said to us, he said, throw it in the grave with my mother. And I said, what are you talking about?
It was like $800,000.
Yeah, a lot of money. And he said, Les, when I was young, and I wanted my teeth fixed, my parents said, we don't have the money to do it. And I know my parents had the money to do it. There was a beautiful girl in class that I really wanted to smile to, and I couldn't because I had the worst teeth. And he said, then when I got married, I married somebody who I really didn't love, but she also had bad teeth. And we had something in common, so we got married. I didn't really love her. We had a child. I said, Mom, please, can we pay for my child's education, help my child to have a better education than me? My mom said, it's your child. You pay for the child's education. And he says, Les, I'm 70 years old now. I have this money. What am I going to do with it? I'm not going to fix my teeth. I'm not going to marry a woman I really love. My child's not going to respect me. He doesn't have the education I wanted him to have because I couldn't afford to. And he said, you know what? What do I have? 5 years left with it? 10 years left with it? And that's why we often tell parents, give your children with a warm hand, not a cold hand. Let them hug you while you're alive rather than thanking you after you pass away.
Nice.
And also give your kids some money now.
Absolutely.
Don't wait till you're dead.
That's right.
Don't need to have a big fat will all the time, right?
That's right.
All right, that's
the other thing I want to mention. I want to mention that the
Yeah.
book is it's available digitally online for $10 if you go to that website, thewillslawyers.com.
All
That's
right.
good. And you get $10 off your will if you go see Les afterwards, right? I just threw that in.
Yeah.
That's Les Kotzer, wills and estates
Thanks a
lawyer.
lot.
Thanks so
Take
much
care.
for being with us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Les.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm leaving everything to you, Liz.
We're still alive. Okay.
Everything
When
to
we
you.
come back, Officer Wilson, your first TV interview was uncalled for.
Liz, you know, he stayed silent long enough. The poor guy, I think he should be able to do whatever he wants. And we'll talk about it next on Square Off.